Welcome, friend. Tonight we walk a quiet path together. The day behind you has ended, as all days must. The world continues beyond these walls, but here you need do nothing. You have arrived at a place of rest. Let your body soften into the surface beneath you. Notice the weight of your head against the pillow. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest. The breath moves without effort, without thought, carrying you deeper into stillness. Outside, perhaps the wind stirs the trees. Perhaps rain whispers against the window. Perhaps the night holds only silence. Whatever sounds exist, they belong to this moment, and this moment belongs to peace. Imagine, if you will, a temple garden at dusk. The sky fades from violet to indigo. Stone lanterns flicker softly along a winding path. The air smells of incense and damp earth. Somewhere distant, a bell rings once, then falls silent. You are walking this path now, slowly, with nowhere to arrive. Each step is complete in itself. The stones are smooth beneath your feet. The shadows deepen between the trees. And in this deepening there is no urgency, no worry. Only the gentle rhythm of walking, breathing, being. The mind may carry many thoughts from the day. Tasks left unfinished, words left unsaid, worries about tomorrow. These thoughts are like leaves floating on a stream. You need not gather them or push them away, simply watch them drift past, one after another, until they disappear. The stream continues clear and quiet. Your breath continues soft and steady. And beneath all the movement, there is a stillness that was always here. This stillness is not something you must create. It is not something you must earn through discipline or practice. It is the ground of your being, as natural as breathing itself. Tonight, we will uncover this stillness together, not through striving, but through surrender. Not through thinking, but through listening. The ancient teachers knew this truth well. They lived simply, watched carefully, and spoke only when silence was not enough. Their stories are like doors opening onto vast, quiet rooms. We will enter these rooms together, you and I. We will sit with the teachers and hear what they learned. And in hearing, perhaps we will remember what we already know. That peace is not elsewhere. That wholeness is not delayed. That everything needed for rest already exists within you, waiting to be noticed. So let us begin. Let the body settle deeper. Let the breath become your anchor. And let the first story unfold like moonlight spreading across still water. The evening air grows cooler now. Can you feel it against your skin, gentle and soft? The day's warmth has faded, leaving behind a pleasant coolness. This is the temperature of rest, of transition, of letting go. In the temple garden, a monk walks slowly along the path. His robes are simple, grey and worn from years of washing. His feet move without hurry, each step deliberate and mindful. He's not going anywhere in particular. He is simply walking, being present to each moment. The gravel crunches softly beneath his sandals. The sound is rhythmic, meditative, like a heartbeat. Above him, the first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. They emerge one by one, patient and eternal. The monk does not look up to count them. He trusts they are there as they have always been. His practice is not about seeing everything, but about seeing what is here. And what is here in this moment is enough. The path curves around a stone basin filled with water. The surface is perfectly still, reflecting the deepening blue of the sky. A single leaf floats on this mirror, barely disturbing its perfection. The monk pauses here as he does every evening. He observes the leaf, the water, the reflection of the emerging stars. He observes without naming, without judging, without needing anything to be different. This is his meditation, not sitting on a cushion with eyes closed, but standing here, present, awake. After some time, though time itself seems to dissolve in this moment, he continues walking. The path leads him past bamboo groves that whisper in the evening breeze. The sound is like water flowing over stones, constant and soothing. He listens without trying to hear anything specific, just receiving the sound, letting it wash through his awareness. Ahead, the main hall of the temple comes into view. Warm light glows from its windows, spilling onto the courtyard. But the monk does not hurry toward this light. He remains with the darkness, with the path, with each step, because he knows that peace is not in the destination. It is in the walking itself. It is in being fully here, wherever here happens to be. This is what the old teachers understood, that enlightenment is not something to achieve in the future, it is something to recognize in the present. Not by becoming different, but by accepting what is, not by transcending life, but by entering it fully. The monk reaches the steps of the temple and pauses again. He removes his sandals slowly with reverence for this simple act. Then he climbs the wooden steps, feeling each board beneath his feet. At the entrance he bows, not to anything outside himself, but to the moment itself, to the privilege of being alive, of having this body, this breath, this awareness. Then he enters the hall, and the story begins. Act 2. The first story, The Blind Calligrapher. In a mountain monastery many centuries ago, there lived a calligrapher named Shen. Shen was renowned throughout the province for the elegance of his brushwork. Scholars travelled great distances to commission scrolls bearing his characters. Each stroke seemed to hold the essence of the word itself. When Shen wrote mountain, one could feel the weight of stone. When he wrote river, the characters seemed to flow across the page. When he wrote wind, the brush seemed to dance of its own accord. His fame grew with each passing year, spreading from village to village. And with this fame came requests, expectations, and the burden of maintaining excellence. Shen began to study his own work obsessively, analyzing each stroke for perfection. He would practice a single character for hours, seeking absolute mastery. The joy that once filled his practice slowly transformed into anxiety. The freedom he once felt with brush in hand became a cage of his own making. He worried that each new commission might reveal a decline in his abilities. He feared that younger calligraphers would surpass him, rendering his years of practice meaningless. At night, he would lie awake, his mind rehearsing strokes, comparing his work to ancient masters. The brush, once a source of pleasure, became an instrument of judgment. Yet outwardly his reputation continued to grow. People spoke of him as if he were immortal, as if his skill would never fade. They did not see the fear that lived inside him, growing larger each day. Then one winter, A disease swept through the mountain regions. Many fell ill, and some did not recover. Shen contracted this illness and lay fevered for many weeks. The monastery's healers did what they could, bringing him herbs and broths. Slowly, the fever broke, and Shen regained his strength. But the disease had taken something from him: his sight. Within weeks of his recovery, the world became darkness. At first, Shen thought this was temporary, a lingering effect of the illness. But days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, and the darkness remained. He could no longer see his beloved brushes arranged on his desk. He could not see the precious paper he had collected over years. He could not see the inkstones he had used since he was a young apprentice. Most devastating of all, he could not see his own work. The calligraphy that had defined his identity, his worth, his entire life, all of it was lost to him. For months, Shen sat in silence, grieving. He felt as though he had died, even though his body still breathed. What was a calligrapher who could not see? What value did he have without his art? These questions circled his mind endlessly, like water circling a drain. The abbot of the monastery, an elderly woman named Mei, visited him often during this time. She would sit beside Shen in his dim room, saying nothing, simply breathing together. Sometimes she would place her hand on his shoulder, a silent gesture of companionship. Other times she would read to him from the sutras, her voice steady and calm. But mostly, she just sat with him in his grief. She did not try to fix his sadness or offer empty reassurances. She simply witnessed it, held space for it, allowed it to be. One evening, after many months of this silent companionship, the abbot spoke. "Your eyes have closed," she said quietly. "Perhaps now you can finally see." Shen turned his face toward her voice, confused and slightly irritated. "How can I see without eyes?" he asked, bitterness creeping into his tone. "I am blind, Master Mei. My life as an artist is over." The abbot was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Tell me when you were famous. What did you see?" Shen frowned, not understanding the question. "I saw my work," he said. "I saw the characters I created, the beauty I made." "Did you?" the abbot asked gently. "Or did you see your fear of failure reflected in every stroke? Did you see the work itself or your anxiety about how others would judge it?" These words struck Shen like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to protest, but no words came, because he knew in that moment that she was right. For years, he had not truly seen his own calligraphy. He had only seen his fear, his pride, his desperate need for validation. The brush had become a mirror reflecting his insecurities, not a tool for creation. "I was blind even when I could see," Shen whispered. The abbot nodded, though he could not see this gesture. "And now that your outer eyes have closed," she said, "perhaps your inner eyes can open. The eyes that see without needing to look. The eyes that know without needing to understand." Shen sat with these words for days afterward. They disturbed something deep within him, some foundation he had built his identity upon. What did it mean to see without looking, to know without understanding? These seemed like paradoxes, riddles without answers. But slowly, as he sat alone in his darkness, something began to shift. He noticed that without sight, his other senses had become more acute. He could hear the subtle differences between footsteps, knowing who approached before they spoke. He could smell changes in the weather, sensing when rain was coming hours before it arrived. He could feel textures with extraordinary precision, discerning silk from cotton with a single touch. His world had not disappeared, it had simply changed its language. And in learning this new language, he was discovering aspects of reality he had overlooked for decades. One morning, several weeks after the abbot's visit, Shen made a decision. He called for his attendant and made a simple request. "Please bring me my brushes," he said. The attendant hesitated, uncertain if Shen understood what he was asking. "Master," the young man said carefully, "you cannot see to write." "I know," Shen replied. Bring them anyway." The attendant did as asked, placing the familiar brushes in Shen's hands. Shen held them, feeling their weight, their texture, their balance. These tools had been extensions of himself for so many years. He knew their shapes as intimately as he knew his own fingers. "Now bring me ink and paper," he said. Again the attendant complied, though worry filled his face. He prepared the ink carefully, grinding the ink stick against the stone with water. The sound was familiar, rhythmic, almost like a meditation in itself. Then he placed a sheet of paper on the desk before Shen. "It is ready, master," he said quietly. Shen sat for a long time, brush in hand, not moving. He was remembering how it felt to write when he was a young student. Before fame, before fear, before the weight of reputation. Back then, he would simply dip the brush and let it move, trusting the gesture. There was no second-guessing, no analysis, no anxiety about the result. Just the pure joy of ink meeting paper, of creating something from nothing. Could he return to that innocence? Could he write again without seeing, without judging, without knowing if the work was good? Slowly, Shen dipped his brush into the ink. He felt the liquid soak into the bristles, felt the weight increase slightly. Then he brought the brush to where he sensed the paper must be. He took a deep breath, and without hesitation, he made his first stroke. The brush moved across the paper, guided only by memory and intuition. He could not see where he was going or what he was creating. He could only feel the movement itself, the pressure, the speed, the angle. It was terrifying and exhilarating at once. When the stroke was complete, he lifted the brush and paused. Had it been straight or crooked, beautiful or ugly, he had no way of knowing. And suddenly he realized he did not need to know. For the first time in decades, he was free from the tyranny of judgment. The stroke existed now, whatever it was, and he could not change it. All he could do was continue, make the next stroke, and the next. So he did. Character after character, Shen wrote, in darkness. Some strokes felt confident, others uncertain. Some seemed to flow naturally, others required effort. But each one was made without seeing, without knowing, without controlling the outcome. It was the purest form of creation he had ever experienced. Hours passed. The attendant watched in silence, too moved to interrupt. Finally, Shen set down his brush and sat back. "It is finished," he said simply. The attendant stepped forward and looked at the paper. His eyes widened, and tears began to fall down his cheeks. "Master," he whispered, "this is extraordinary." Shen smiled softly. "I cannot see it," he said. "Tell me what you see." The attendant struggled to find words. "The characters they are alive," he finally said. "They dance across the page with a freedom I have never seen in your work before. Some strokes are imperfect, yes, but that imperfection makes them more beautiful. They feel spontaneous, genuine, filled with life. It is as if the brush moved by itself without your hand guiding it." Shen listened to this description, and something inside him began to weep. Not tears of sadness, but of recognition. He had spent his entire life trying to create perfection through control. And now, having lost all control, he had stumbled into something far greater. A perfection that came not from precision, but from presence. A beauty that emerged not from technique, but from trust. Word of Shen's new work spread quickly through the monastery. Monks came to see what the blind calligrapher had created. Each one was struck by the raw vitality of the characters. They seemed less like symbols and more like living gestures frozen in ink. The abbot came as well, and when she saw the scrolls, she smiled deeply. "Now you see," she said to Shen, "not with eyes, but with awareness itself. The brush knows the way when the mind steps aside." In the months that followed, Shen continued his practice. Every day he would sit at his desk and write in darkness. Sometimes he would spend hours on a single character, feeling his way through each stroke. Other times he would fill scroll after scroll with rapid, spontaneous gestures. He never saw the results. He never knew if what he created was beautiful or flawed. And paradoxically, this not knowing became his greatest teacher. Without the ability to judge his work, he was forced to be completely present with the act itself. He learned to feel the subtle shifts in pressure as the brush moved. He learned to sense when the ink was flowing too heavily or too lightly. He learned to trust the wisdom of his hand, built over decades of practice. Most importantly, he learned to let go of outcome and embrace process. The doing became more important than the done. The journey became more sacred than the destination. Students began to arrive at the monastery, seeking to learn from Master Shen. They came expecting lessons in technique and how to form perfect characters. Instead, Shen taught them something far more radical. "Close your eyes," he would tell them. "Now write." The students would protest, saying they could not write without seeing. "Exactly," Shen would respond. "You think you write with your eyes, but you do not. You write with your whole being, your breath, your posture, your intention. The eyes are actually a distraction. They tell you what is wrong before you have finished creating it. They judge before the work is complete. Close them and trust something deeper." Some students could not accept this teaching and left the monastery, but others stayed, and slowly they began to understand. When they closed their eyes and wrote, their work changed dramatically. It became more fluid, more expressive, less constrained by their ideas of perfection. They discovered, as Shen had, that true freedom comes from letting go. Not just letting go of sight, but letting go of control itself. Letting go of the need to know how things will turn out. Letting go of the fear that they might fail or be judged. Years passed in this way. Shen became famous again, but for entirely different reasons. People no longer spoke of his technical mastery, but of the spirit in his work. They said his characters contained something they could not name, a presence, a vitality, an authenticity. Some called it enlightenment expressed through some ink. Others simply said his work made them feel something true. But Shen himself never used such grand words. When asked about his art, he would say simply, "I write in darkness, and the darkness teaches me. It teaches me to trust what I cannot see. It teaches me to value presence over perfection. It teaches me that letting go is not loss, but liberation." One winter evening, many years after he had lost his sight, Shen sat at his desk as usual. The attendant, now quite old himself, prepared the ink and paper, but this time when Shen took up the brush, his hand trembled. Not from fear or uncertainty, but from age. His body was wearing out, approaching the end of its journey. He knew this, accepted it, and did not resist. He dipped the brush and began to write one final character. The stroke moved slowly across the page, wavering slightly but continuing with determination. When it was complete, Shen set down the brush and smiled. "Read it to me," he asked his attendant. The old man looked at the paper and his eyes filled with tears. "Master," he said softly, "you have written the character for home." Shen nodded, unsurprised. "Yes," he said. "After all these years of traveling through darkness, I have finally arrived home. Not to a place, but to a way of being, present, trusting, free." That night, Shen died peacefully in his sleep. In the morning, they found him still sitting at his desk, the brush resting in his hand. Before him, the character home was still wet with ink, perfect in its imperfection, complete in its surrender. A final teaching from a master who learned to see by embracing blindness. Interlude, breath and reflection. Let these words settle now, like snow falling on quiet ground. The story of Shen is complete, but its teaching continues in you. As you lie here in darkness, you are not so different from the blind calligrapher. You cannot see the future or know how your life will unfold. You cannot control outcomes or prevent uncertainty. All you can do is be present with this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. And perhaps that is enough. Perhaps that has always been enough. Notice your breathing now, without trying to change it. Is it deep or shallow, fast or slow? Whatever it is perfect for this moment. The body knows how to breathe, has known since your first moment of life. You do not have to teach it or improve it. You only have to notice it, be with it, trust it. Each inhale brings fresh oxygen, new life, new possibility. Each exhale releases what is finished, what is no longer needed. This cycle continues without pause, without judgment, without doubt. Breathing is the body's way of showing you how to live, how to receive and release, how to hold gently and let go completely, how to trust the process even when you cannot see the outcome. Shen learned this lesson through his art. You can learn it through simply being alive, aware, present. The darkness around you is not your enemy. It is a teacher like it was for Shen. It invites you to develop other ways of knowing, to feel instead of seeing, to sense instead of analyzing, to trust instead of controlling. In this darkness, you are safe. Nothing is required of you except to rest, to breathe, to be. There is no need to create anything perfect, no need to prove your worth or justify your existence. You are already enough, exactly as you are, flawed, uncertain, beautifully imperfect. like Shen's final calligraphy, perfect in its imperfection. So let yourself relax more deeply now. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let your jaw unclench, your belly soften. Let go of the day and all its demands. Let go of tomorrow and all its unknowns. Right now, in this moment, you have everything you need. A body that breathes, a heart that beats, an awareness that witnesses it all, and underneath the thoughts and worries, a deep stillness. A peace that does not depend on circumstances. A wholeness that cannot be broken by any loss. This is what Shen discovered. Not through gaining something new, but through losing what he thought he needed. His sight was taken, and in that taking, he was given vision. His control was removed, and in that removal, he found freedom. His identity was shattered, and in that shattering, he discovered his true self. What might you discover if you stopped trying to see everything? If you stopped trying to control outcomes? If you allowed yourself to work, to live, to love in darkness? Not physical darkness, but the darkness of not knowing, the darkness of uncertainty, of impermanence, of constant change. This is the darkness we all live in, whether we admit it or not. We do not know what tomorrow will bring. We do not know how our stories will end. We do not know if our efforts will succeed or fail. But we continue anyway. We write our lives stroke by stroke, breath by breath. And if we can do it with presence instead of anxiety, if we can do it with trust instead of fear, if we can embrace not knowing as Shen did, then perhaps our lives become like his calligraphy, spontaneous, alive, filled with unexpected beauty, not because everything goes according to plan, but because we stop needing a plan. We stop judging each moment as good or bad. We simply meet it, respond to it, and let it go. This is the art of living that the old masters taught, not through complex philosophies, but through simple presence. Being here, being now, being aware. Again and again, returning to this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this singular, unrepeatable instant of existence. Rest in this awareness now. Let it hold you like water holds a boat. You do not have to stay afloat through effort. The water itself supports you. Awareness itself supports you. Life itself supports you. You are held, always held, even when you feel alone. Especially when you feel alone. Because aloneness is an illusion. You are part of everything. The air you breathe connects you to trees miles away. The water in your body connects you to oceans and clouds. The atoms that make up your form have existed since the beginning of time. You are not separate from the world, but woven into its fabric. One thread in an infinite tapestry, one note in an endless song, one breath in the universal breathing. Shen learned this when he stopped seeing himself as separate from his art. When subject and object merged, there was only the gesture itself. The hand moving, the ink flowing, the paper receiving. No separation between artist and artwork. Just creation happening, spontaneous and whole. You can experience this same unity right now. Not by trying to achieve it, but by noticing it is already here. There is no separation between you and your breathing. You are not breathing. Breathing is happening. You are not beating your heart. It beats itself. You are not living your life. Life is living itself through you. And when you recognize this, truly recognize it, everything becomes easier. The burden of being a separate self, responsible for everything, falls away. What remains is a kind of joyful participation in existence, not controlling it, but dancing with it, not mastering it, but flowing with it. Like Shen's brush flowing across the page in darkness, trusting, surrendering, creating without effort. This is the way of water, the way of wind, the way of life itself. And it is your way too, if you allow it. If you stop fighting against the current and let it carry you, not into unconsciousness, but into a deeper consciousness, one that is aware but not attached, present but not grasping, alive but not clinging to life. This is the freedom the old teachers speak of. Not freedom from life, but freedom within life. The freedom to be fully here, fully engaged, fully alive, without needing it to be different than it is, without needing yourself to be different than you are. Just this, just now, just breathing in the darkness, like Shen at his desk, creating something beautiful without knowing it, living something sacred without trying, being exactly what you need to be without effort or strain, perfect in your imperfection, complete in your incompleteness, home even in the darkness, especially in the darkness. Act 3. The second story. The Temple Cat. There was once a monastery nestled in a forested valley where monks gathered each evening for meditation. The meditation hall was simple and beautiful, bare wooden walls, polished floors, and cushions arranged in perfect rows. At the center of the room hung an ancient bell, its bronze surface dark with age. When struck, this bell produced a sound so pure that it seemed to quiet the very air. The monks took great pride in their evening practice. They would sit in complete stillness, their backs straight, their minds focused on the breath. Outside, the world continued its busy turning, but inside the hall, time seemed to stop, or at least it was supposed to. But there was one constant disruption to this carefully maintained peace. A cat lived in the monastery, a grey tabby with white paws and green eyes. No one remembered when she had arrived or who had brought her. She simply existed there as much a part of the place as the wooden beams and stone foundations. This cat had a particular habit that drove the monks to distraction. Each evening, just as meditation began, she would wander into the hall. She would walk slowly between the rows of sitting monks, rubbing against their robes. Her purring was audible even in the silence, a rumbling that seemed impossibly loud. Sometimes she would stop beside a monk and meow demandingly, as if asking a question. Other times she would curl up directly on someone's cushion, forcing them to shift position. She seemed to have no understanding of meditation protocol whatsoever, or perhaps she understood perfectly well and simply did not care. The monks found this disruption unbearable. They had come to the monastery to develop concentration, to train their minds in stillness. How could they possibly achieve this with a cat wandering freely through their practice? One monk would be deep in contemplation of impermanence when the cat would brush against him. Another would be counting breaths when the cat would meow loudly in his ear. A third would be approaching a state of profound calm when the cat would knock over a water bowl. After weeks of this frustration, the monks gathered to discuss the problem. Some suggested that the cat be kept outside during meditation hours. Others proposed that she be given to a family in the village. A few thought she should be gently removed whenever she entered the hall. Finally, they agreed to bring their complaint to the abbot. The abbot at that time was a woman named Roshi Yoshida. She was quite elderly, her face creased with lines that suggested more smiles than frowns. She had been ordained for over 50 years and was known for her unconventional teaching methods. The monks came to her quarters one afternoon, led by the most senior among them. "Respected teacher," he began formally, "we wish to speak about a difficulty in our practice." Roshi Yoshida gestured for them to sit, and they arranged themselves on the floor. "The cat," another monk blurted out, unable to contain his frustration. "She destroys our concentration every evening. We cannot meditate properly with her walking among us." The other monks nodded in agreement, their faces showing genuine distress. They described the cat's behavior in detail, the purring, the rubbing, the occasional meow. They explained how it shattered their focus just as they were beginning to settle. Roshi Yoshida listened to all of this with a patient, slightly amused expression. When they had finished, she sat in silence for some time, as if considering the matter deeply. Finally, she spoke. "I understand your difficulty," she said. "Concentration is important in our practice." The monks relaxed slightly, relieved that she was taking their concern seriously. "Therefore," the Roshi continued, "before each sitting, you will tie the cat to the central pillar." The monks blinked, surprised by this solution. "Tie her?" one asked uncertainly. "Yes," Roshi Yoshida said. "Use a soft cloth rope so that she is comfortable but cannot wander. Place her near the pillar where she can groom herself and rest peacefully. In this way, your meditation will not be disturbed." The monks bowed gratefully, pleased that their teacher had provided such a practical answer. That very evening, before the meditation bell was rung, they gently caught the grey cat. She did not protest much as they tied her with a soft rope to the wooden pillar. They made sure she could sit or lie down comfortably, that the rope was loose enough not to hurt. Then they returned to their cushions and began their sitting practice. The difference was remarkable and immediate. Without the cat prowling among them, the monks could sink deep into concentration. The hall remained perfectly silent except for the sound of breathing. No purring, no meowing, no sudden movements to break the spell. The monks felt their practice deepen significantly. They could follow their breath for longer periods without distraction. They could contemplate the Dharma teachings without interruption. Some even began to experience the jhanas, the deep meditative absorptions. They were immensely grateful to Roshi Yoshida for her wisdom in solving this problem. Time passed, as time does. Days became weeks, weeks became months, months became years. The practice of tying the cat before meditation became so routine that no one questioned it. Every evening, without fail, someone would catch the grey cat and secure her to the pillar. She seemed to accept this as her role, settling into the routine peacefully. The monks' meditation continued to deepen. The monastery gained a reputation for the intensity and discipline of its practice. Students came from distant regions to train there, drawn by stories of its rigorous standards. Then, after nearly a decade, Roshi Yoshida passed away peacefully one spring morning. She died as she had lived, with grace and simplicity, sitting upright in meditation. The monks mourned her deeply, performing the traditional ceremonies with reverence. According to the monastery's tradition, the most senior monk would assume leadership, This was a man named Takashi, who had studied under Roshi Yoshida for 30 years. He took up the responsibilities of abbotship with humility and determination. Under his guidance, the monastery continued its practices exactly as before. Everything remained the same, including the evening ritual of tying the cat. But only a few months after Roshi Yoshida's death, the grey cat also passed away. She had lived a long life for a cat, and her death seemed peaceful. The monks found her one morning curled in a patch of sunlight, having died in her sleep. They buried her in the garden with simple prayers, grateful for her presence over the years. That evening, as the time for meditation approached, the monks prepared as usual. But when one of them went to fetch the cat, reality struck him. "We have no cat," he said, confusion evident in his voice. The other monks stopped their preparations and looked at each other uncertainly. This was unexpected. The ritual of tying the cat had become so ingrained that its absence felt like a missing piece. "What should we do?" a younger monk asked. They gathered in a small group, whispering nervously. Abbot Takashi overheard this conversation and approached. "What is the matter?" he asked. "Abbot," one monk said hesitantly, "the cat has died. What shall we do for meditation?" Takashi frowned, considering this question as if it were a profound philosophical problem. "The practice requires the cat to be tied before meditation," he said slowly. "Roshi Yoshida instituted this tradition herself. Without fulfilling this requirement, our practice will be incomplete." The monks nodded, relieved that their abbot understood the seriousness of the situation. "Therefore," Takashi announced, "we must find another cat." The next day, 2 monks were sent to the village with instructions to find a suitable cat. They returned that evening with a black kitten, barely 3 months old. The kitten was playful and curious, with bright yellow eyes and oversized paws. That evening, the monks carefully tied the kitten to the central pillar before beginning meditation. The kitten was confused at first, mewing softly and tugging at the rope. But eventually it settled down, curling into a small ball of black fur. The monks sat their meditation as always, satisfied that the proper form had been maintained. More time passed. The black kitten grew into a sleek black cat, healthy and content in the monastery. She seemed to accept her role, allowing herself to be tied each evening without protest. Abbot Takashi eventually grew old and retired from leadership, passing responsibilities to his most senior student. This new abbot was a man named Kenji, who had joined the monastery as a teenager. He had spent his entire adult life training there, learning every aspect of its tradition. He was deeply committed to preserving the monastery's practices exactly as he had received them. Under his leadership, the tradition of tying the cat continued without question. The monastery flourished, its reputation growing even stronger. Many years after Kenji became abbot, a visiting scholar arrived at the monastery. Her name was Dr. Tanaka, and she was studying Buddhist practices across different traditions. She had been granted permission to observe and document the monastery's methods. One evening, she sat at the back of the meditation hall, taking careful notes. She observed the monks preparing for their sitting practice with great attention to detail. Then she watched with interest as a young monk brought the black cat to the central pillar. He tied her carefully with a red cloth rope, making sure she was comfortable. The cat settled immediately, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Then the monks took their seats, the bell was struck, and meditation began. After the sitting, Dr. Tanaka approached Abbot Kenji with a question. "Forgive my ignorance, Abbot," she said respectfully, "but I am curious about a practice I observed." "Of course," Kenji replied warmly. "What would you like to know?" "Why do you tie the cat to the pillar before meditation?" she asked. "Is this ritual mentioned in the sutras, or does it have a specific symbolic meaning?" Abbot Kenji smiled with the confidence of someone explaining a well-understood tradition. "This practice was instituted by our founder, the great Roshi Yoshida," he explained. "It is a core part of our meditative discipline, passed down through generations. The cat represents the untamed mind, you see. By tying her to the pillar, we symbolically bind our wandering thoughts to the center of awareness. It is a physical manifestation of mental stability, a reminder to remain focused. We perform this ritual before every sitting to prepare our minds for deep concentration." Dr. Tanaka nodded thoughtfully, making a note in her journal. But privately, she felt something was amiss in this explanation. The practice seemed oddly specific, too particular to be purely symbolic. She suspected there might be more to the story than the current abbot knew. That evening, in her guest quarters, she reviewed her notes and contemplated what she had seen. Had the abbot forgotten the original reason for this practice? Had a practical solution transformed into a sacred ritual over time? Had the form become more important than the function it once served? She thought about how easily this happens in all traditions, not just Buddhist ones. A teacher makes a simple decision to address an immediate problem. Later generations, not knowing the original context, assume it must have deep significance. They create elaborate justifications, weaving meaning into what was once merely practical. The means becomes the end. The remedy becomes confused with the disease. The finger pointing at the moon is mistaken for the moon itself. Dr. Tanaka decided not to voice these thoughts to the abbot or monks. It was not her place to disturb their practice or question their understanding. They were sincere practitioners, dedicated to their path. If the ritual of tying the cat helped them focus their minds, then perhaps it served a purpose. But when she left the monastery and continued her research, she shared this story. Wherever she lectured on Buddhist practice, she would tell the tale of the temple cat. "Be mindful," she would say, "of confusing tradition with truth. Question why you do what you do, even in spiritual practice, especially in spiritual practice. Do not mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself. Do not turn practical solutions into unquestionable sacred acts. Always return to the original intention, the original need. Otherwise, you may spend your life tying cats without knowing why." Years later, one of the monks from the monastery attended one of Dr. Tanaka's lectures. He sat in the audience listening as she told the story of the temple cat. As she spoke, his face underwent a visible transformation. Recognition dawned, then embarrassment, then a kind of bemused wonder. After the lecture, he approached her. "Professor," he said quietly, "I am from that monastery you described. We still tie a cat every evening before meditation, and I have done so for 15 years without ever questioning why." Dr. Tanaka looked at him with gentle eyes. "And now that you know the original story," she asked, "what will you do?" The monk was silent for a long moment. "I will return," he said finally. "I will share this story with my brothers, and then we will try sitting without the cat, to see if the distraction we fear is still there, or if it was always just our resistance." He returned to the monastery and did exactly as he had said. He called a meeting of all the monks and told them what he had learned. The original cat, generations ago, had been a real distraction. Roshi Yoshida had solved a practical problem by tying her, but the problem had been the specific cat's behavior, not cats in general. Once that cat had died, the need for the solution had died with her. Yet they had continued the practice for decades, believing it to be essential. They had sought out new cats to tie, generation after generation, all because they had forgotten the original reason. The reactions among the monks were varied and strong. Some felt angry, as if they had been tricked or lied to. They had devoted years to this practice, believed in its importance. To learn it had been unnecessary, felt like a betrayal. Others laughed, seeing the absurdity of their situation. They had been so serious about something that had no real foundation. The laughter was cathartic, releasing years of unnecessary tension. A few sat in stunned silence, suddenly questioning everything they had been taught. If this practice was baseless, what else might be? How much of their tradition was wisdom, and how much was just accumulated habit? Finally, the eldest monk in the community spoke. She had been practicing at the monastery for over 40 years. Perhaps, she said quietly, we should simply try one sitting without tying the cat. If our meditation suffers, we will know the ritual has value, symbolic or otherwise. If our meditation remains strong, we will know we are ready to practice without this support. The abbot, though troubled by these revelations, agreed. That evening, for the first time in anyone's memory, no cat was tied to the pillar. The black cat wandered freely, as cats do, curious about this change in routine. She walked among the monks as they settled onto their cushions. Some of them tensed, waiting for distraction to overwhelm their practice. But the cat, perhaps sensing their intention, simply found a quiet corner and curled up to sleep. The meditation bell was struck, and the sitting began. The monks waited for their concentration to crumble, for their minds to scatter. But nothing unusual happened. The breath continued in and out, just as it always had. Thoughts arose and passed away, just as they always did. The mind wandered and returned, just as it had for years. Cat or no cat, rope or no rope, the practice was the same, because the practice had never been about the cat. It had always been about awareness, about presence, about returning to this moment. The cat had been neutral, neither help nor hindrance. The monk's belief about the cat had been the real factor. When they believed she must be tied, they were attached to that form. When they released that belief, they discovered their practice had always been free. After the meditation ended, the monks sat in silence for a while. Then, slowly, smiles began to appear on faces. Some monks shook their heads in disbelief at their own foolishness. Others simply laughed quietly, the sound like water over stones. The eldest monk finally spoke again. For 40 years, she said, I have faithfully tied cats before meditation. I believed I was honoring our founder's wisdom, and in a way, perhaps I was, because the real wisdom was not in tying cats. It was in being willing to let go of tying cats when the time came. Roshi Yoshida gave us a practical solution, and we turned it into a prison. But now we can honor her memory properly, by understanding what she actually taught. That practice adapts to need. That form serves function, not the other way around. That freedom is more important than tradition. From that evening forward, the monastery no longer tied the cat before meditation. The black cat was free to come and go as she pleased. Sometimes she would wander into the hall during sitting practice. Most times she would not. It made no difference to the monks' meditation. They had learned what they needed to learn. That attachment to form is still attachment. That mistaking the map for the territory leads to confusion. That wisdom lies in understanding why we do what we do. The story spread to other monasteries, and many found their own temple cats. Practices they had maintained without question, purely because it had always been done this way. Some were harmless, others were actively hindering genuine practice. But all shared the same origin, a forgotten reason, a misunderstood intention. This is how traditions calcify, the old teachers would say. Not through malice or stupidity, but through sincere reverence for what came before. We honor our teachers by preserving their methods exactly. But sometimes we honor them better by understanding their intentions deeply and adapting those intentions to new circumstances with wisdom and flexibility. The cat that needed tying has been dead for generations. Stop looking for new cats to tie. Sit down and meditate. The middle breath. Pause here in the darkness, halfway through our journey together. 2 stories have been told, 2 doors have opened. The blind calligrapher taught surrender. The temple cat taught discernment. Together they point to a middle way, neither grasping nor rejecting, but seeing clearly. Your body has grown heavier now, sinking deeper into rest. The weight of your limbs is considerable, almost immovable. This is good. This is the body preparing for sleep, for restoration, for the deep work of healing. Let it continue. Let yourself become heavy as stone, solid as mountain. Your breath has slowed too, each cycle longer and more spacious than before. The pause between exhale and inhale lengthens. In that pause there is nothing, no doing, no being, just space. Rest in that space. It is the space between thoughts, between identities, between moments. It is the gap where transformation happens. You need not understand this intellectually. Just notice it, feel it, allow it. The teaching continues, but you need not strain to follow every word. Let the words wash over you like rain over stone. Some will be absorbed, some will run off. Both are perfect. Nothing is required of you except to be here, breathing, resting. And even that is not truly required. It is simply what is happening, and that is enough. Before we continue with another story, let us sit together in silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of fullness. The silence that contains all sounds without being disturbed by them. Listen to that silence now. It is behind the distant traffic, behind the hum of electricity, behind your own breathing. It is the background against which all sounds appear. This silence is like awareness itself, always present, never changing. Sounds come and go, but silence remains. Thoughts come and go, but awareness remains. Experiences rise and fall, but the witnessing presence remains. You are that presence. Not the body which is changing, not the mind which is flowing, but the awareness in which body and mind appear. This awareness is completely at rest, even when everything else is in motion. It needs no sleep because it is never tired. It needs no healing because it is never damaged. It simply is, eternal and spacious. When you rest as this awareness, you touch something beyond personal existence. You touch the universal consciousness that looks through every pair of eyes, that breathes through every set of lungs, that beats in every heart. This is not philosophy or religion. It is direct experience, available right now if you are willing to notice. Notice that you are aware, not aware of something, just aware, present, here, now. In this noticing, there is a shift, from being caught in thoughts to witnessing thoughts, from being tossed by emotions to holding emotions gently, from being this small, worried self to being the vast space in which the self appears. The shift is subtle but profound. Nothing changes externally. Your body remains in bed. Your breath continues flowing. But internally, everything is different. There is more room, more ease, more peace. As if you had been living in a small closet and suddenly discovered it opens into a vast hall. The hall was always there. You just never noticed the door. The old teachers spent their lives pointing at this door, telling stories, creating practices, using every skill they had to say, "Look here, notice this. You are not what you think you are. You are so much more." So rest now in this vastness. Let your small self dissolve like sugar in tea. The sweetness remains, but the form is gone. You are that sweetness, consciousness itself, aware and awake, not struggling to stay aware, but simply resting in what is always true. And from this rest, another story will emerge, another teaching will unfold, not to give you something you lack, but to remind you of what you already have, already are, already will always be. Listen now with your whole being, not just your ears, but your heart, your bones, your blood. Let the story enter you completely, and let it show you to yourself. Act 4, the third story, the burning library. In a distant kingdom, many generations ago, there stood a library renowned throughout the known world. Its collection was unmatched. Scrolls from ancient civilizations, manuscripts in languages both living and forgotten, maps of lands that no longer existed by those names, scientific treatises detailing discoveries that had taken centuries to achieve, poetry written by masters who had lived and died before the kingdom itself was founded. The library had taken over 400 years to accumulate. Generation after generation of careful collecting. It sat on a hillside overlooking a valley so green it seemed painted. The building itself was a masterpiece of architecture, 3 stories tall with vaulted ceilings and carved columns. Windows of colored glass lined the east and west walls, casting rainbow patterns across the floors. In the morning, blue and purple light would sweep through the reading rooms. In the afternoon, gold and crimson would paint the corridors. Scholars traveled from across the world to study within these walls. They would spend months, sometimes years, poring over the texts. Some came seeking answers to specific questions. Others came simply to immerse themselves in the accumulated wisdom of humanity. The library was more than a building. It was a temple of knowledge, a sanctuary of learning. The librarian who oversaw this treasure was a monk named Kenji. Kenji was not born into the religious life, but had chosen it in his 20s. Before taking vows, he had been a merchant, traveling extensively for trade. He had seen much of the world and had been struck by humanity's capacity for both wisdom and foolishness. Eventually, he had felt called to a life of contemplation and service. The monastery had sent him to manage the library, recognizing his love of learning. For 30 years, Kenji had devoted himself to this work completely. He could read 12 languages fluently and understand fragments of 20 more. He had personally catalogued every text, knew the location of every scroll by heart. He could tell you which shelf held the medical treatises of the Persian physicians, where to find the poetry of the Tang dynasty masters, which cabinet contained the illuminated manuscripts from the northern monasteries. He treated each document as a living being, deserving of care and reverence. When a scholar requested a text, Kenji would retrieve it with the same care as handling a newborn child. He would gently blow dust from the cover, carefully open the pages, place it reverently before the reader. At night, after the scholars had left, he would walk slowly through the library. He would touch the spines of books gently, as if blessing them. Sometimes he would pull a random volume and read a few pages by candlelight, not for any scholarly purpose, but simply for the joy of connection with another mind across time. To Kenji, the library was not just a collection of objects. It was a living record of human consciousness, of every question asked and answered, every insight gained through suffering, every beauty captured in words, every attempt to understand this mysterious existence. Destroying a single text felt to him like destroying a human life. Both were unique, irreplaceable, sacred. One autumn evening, as the sun set over the valley, Kenji was in the third-floor reading room. He was repairing a damaged manuscript, carefully gluing a torn page. The work was delicate, requiring complete focus and a steady hand. Outside, the sky was turning spectacular colors, orange fading to pink, then to deep purple. Kenji barely noticed, absorbed in his task. Then, faintly, he smelled something odd. Smoke. He lifted his head, sniffing the air, trying to determine the source. Perhaps someone had left a candle burning unattended, or perhaps a kitchen fire had sent smoke drifting through the building. He set down his tools and went to investigate. As he descended the stairs to the second floor, the smell grew stronger. And then he heard it. A crackling sound, hungry and growing. His heart began to pound as he rushed toward the sound. He turned a corner and stopped, frozen in horror. The east wing was on fire. Flames were consuming a section of shelves, spreading rapidly from book to book. The ancient paper and dry wood fed the fire eagerly. Scrolls blackened and curled in the heat, their characters disappearing into ash. Manuscripts that had survived centuries were vanishing in seconds. For a moment, Kenji could not move, could not think. He simply stared, watching the destruction of what he loved most. Then training took over, and he began to act. He ran toward the fire, grabbing scrolls from nearby shelves before the flames reached them. His hands moved frantically, pulling texts and throwing them toward the windows. Better damaged by a fall than consumed completely. He grabbed armfuls of manuscripts and ran toward the main stairs, carrying them to safety. Then he rushed back for more, again and again, racing against the spreading flames. But it was hopeless. For every text he saved, 100 more were being consumed. The fire was too fast, too hot, too hungry. It roared through the shelves, jumping from section to section. The colored glass began to crack from the heat, shards falling like strange tears. Smoke filled the building, making it hard to see, harder to breathe. Kenji's eyes streamed with tears, from smoke, from grief, from desperate effort. He continued anyway, coughing, stumbling, refusing to give up. Other monks from the monastery had seen the smoke and were running up the hill. They formed a chain, passing books from hand to hand out of the building. Some ran inside with buckets of water, trying to slow the fire's advance. But even with their help, the task was impossible. The library was too large, the fire too well established. The head of the monastery, Abbess Lin, arrived and immediately assessed the situation. She saw monks running into a burning building, risking their lives for texts. She saw Kenji on the second floor, surrounded by smoke, still throwing scrolls through broken windows. "Everyone out," she commanded. "The building is lost. Save yourselves." But Kenji did not hear, or if he did not obey. He had moved deeper into the burning building, trying to reach the rarest texts. The first editions, the one-of-a-kind manuscripts, the irreplaceable treasures. Abbess Lin watched for a moment, then made a decision. She ran into the building, climbing through smoke toward the second floor. She found Kenji in what had been the main reading hall, now filled with flames and smoke. He was on his knees trying to shield a single manuscript from falling embers. His robes were singed, his face blackened with soot. "Kenji!" she shouted over the roar of the fire. "You must leave now. The building is collapsing." But Kenji shook his head, clutching the manuscript tighter. "I cannot leave them," he said, his voice breaking. "These texts are irreplaceable. If they burn, the world loses something sacred. Centuries of wisdom, gone forever. I cannot let that happen." Abbess Lin knelt beside him, feeling the heat scorching her face. Around them, the ceiling beams were beginning to crack. They had minutes at most before the entire structure came down. "Kenji," she said firmly but gently, "the texts are already burning. Most of them are gone, but you are not." Still, Kenji would not move. He looked down at the manuscript in his hands, tears streaming down his face. "Do you know what this is?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "It is a commentary on the Diamond Sutra, written 800 years ago. One of the oldest copies in existence. I have spent years studying this text, learning its wisdom. How can I let it burn?" The abbess knew they had only moments before the ceiling collapsed. She could grab Kenji and try to drag him out, but he would fight her. Or she could try to reach him with words, with teaching. She chose teaching. "Kenji," she said, placing her hand on his shoulder, "what does the Diamond Sutra teach?" Kenji looked at her, confused by the question at such a moment. "What does it teach?" she repeated more urgently. Kenji swallowed hard and recited from memory, his voice shaking. "All conditioned things are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows. Like dewdrops and like lightning, thus should they be contemplated." The words hung in the smoky air between them. The abbess nodded slowly. "Then this text you hold is teaching you even now, as it burns," she said. "It is showing you the truth of its own words. It is demonstrating impermanence, letting go, the freedom found in non-attachment." Kenji stared at the manuscript, feeling its weight, its fragility. The flames crept closer, and he could feel the heat intensifying. Around him, other texts were already ash, their wisdom returned to formlessness. And slowly, painfully, understanding began to dawn. He had devoted his life to preserving these texts because he believed they contained something permanent, something that could be kept, protected, maintained across time. But the texts themselves insisted otherwise. They spoke of impermanence, of change, of the futility of clinging. They taught that all forms arise and pass away, that nothing lasts forever. And now, in their destruction, they were offering their most powerful teaching. They were demonstrating what they had always said. Kenji took a deep breath, feeling the smoke burn his lungs. He looked down at the manuscript one last time, this text he had studied and loved. Then he looked up at Abbess Lin. "The words are not the wisdom," he said quietly. "No," she replied gently. "The wisdom is what remains when the words are gone. The wisdom is what you carry in your understanding, not on the page. And that cannot burn." Kenji nodded slowly, and something inside him released. The desperate grip of attachment loosened. He opened his hands and let the manuscript fall to the floor. It landed in a patch of embers and immediately began to burn. The ancient paper curled and blackened, the careful calligraphy disappearing into smoke. In seconds it was nothing but ash. Kenji watched this transformation, and tears continued to fall. But they were different tears now. Not tears of desperation, but of recognition. He was witnessing the teaching made manifest, form becoming formless, the temporary revealing its true nature. Together, Kenji and Abbess Lin stood and made their way toward the exit. Around them, the library continued to burn, shelves collapsing, walls cracking, ceiling beams falling. They moved carefully through the smoke and flames, supporting each other. When they finally emerged into the night air, Kenji collapsed onto the grass. Behind him, the library was fully engulfed, a massive bonfire against the dark sky. Flames shot through the colored windows, making the building look like a lantern. Other monks gathered around, some weeping, all watching in stunned silence. The fire burned through the entire night. By dawn, only blackened walls and ash remained. 3 floors of knowledge reduced to nothing. 400 years of collecting, gone in hours. Texts that had survived wars, floods, and the rise and fall of kingdoms, all destroyed. As the sun rose over the valley, Kenji stood at a distance looking at the ruins. Other monks gathered around him, silent in their shared grief. The loss was staggering. Thousands of texts, irreplaceable and unique. But Kenji felt something unexpected stirring in his chest alongside the sorrow. Something like relief, like lightness, like a burden being lifted. For 30 years he had carried the weight of preservation. Every text had been a responsibility, a duty of care that could never be fully discharged. He had lived with constant anxiety about fire, about moisture, about insects, about theft. Every moment of carelessness could result in irreparable loss. The weight of this had bent his back, worried his mind, stolen his sleep. Now that weight was gone, and in its absence, he felt oddly free. One of the younger monks approached him hesitantly. "Master Kenji," he said softly, "what will you do now?" Kenji was silent for a long time, watching smoke rise from the ruins. Finally, he spoke. "I will remember," he said. "I will remember what I read, and I will share it with those who wish to hear." The words may be ash, but their meaning lives here. He touched his heart, and here he touched his head. And when I share these teachings, they will live in the hearts and minds of others. And when they share them, the wisdom will continue to flow, like water poured from one vessel into another. The vessel changes, but the water remains. The young monk looked uncertain. "But Master, what if we forget? What if the teachings are lost without the texts to preserve them?" Kenji smiled gently, his face still blackened with soot. "Then they were never truly learned," he said. "A teaching that depends on paper is not yet embodied. It is information, not transformation. Perhaps this fire is the world's way of asking us something. It is asking, do you merely read the Dharma or do you live it? Do you collect wisdom or do you become wisdom? The library is gone, but the opportunity remains. We can rebuild a building and fill it with books again, or we can become living libraries, carrying the teachings in our very being." These words spread through the monastery, challenging and inspiring in equal measure. Some monks felt he was rationalizing tragedy, making poetry out of disaster. But others understood what he was saying, that wisdom is not passive, not something to be guarded in a building. It is active, alive, meant to be practiced and shared. In the weeks and months that followed, Kenji began teaching. He would sit in the valley below the Bern library, beneath a large tree. Students would gather around him, and he would share what he remembered. Sutras he had memorized, commentaries he had studied, insights he had gained. Sometimes his memory failed, and he would forget sections or mix different texts together. But his students did not mind. They were learning something more important than perfect recitation. They were learning how wisdom lives in a human being, how it shapes speech and action, how it responds to circumstances with flexibility and grace. They were learning the difference between knowing about Dharma and knowing Dharma. Word of these teachings spread, and more students came. Some had been scholars at the old library and were devastated by its loss. They arrived grieving, angry, demanding to know how so much could be allowed to vanish. Kenji would listen to their anger with compassion. Then he would ask them gently, "What did you learn from those texts?" And when they answered, describing the wisdom they had gained, he would smile. "Then nothing was lost," he would say. "The texts were always just paper and ink. The wisdom was in your understanding, and that remained. You are the library now. Everything you learned is still alive in you." Slowly, these grieving scholars would begin to see differently. They had been mourning the loss of objects while overlooking what had actually been transmitted. The texts had done their job. They had educated, inspired, transformed. Now they were gone, but their purpose had been fulfilled. It was like mourning a teacher who had died after graduating all their students. Sad, yeah, but also complete. Years passed in this way. Kenji continued teaching, and his students carried his teachings further. Some traveled to distant regions sharing what they had learned. Others remained in the valley, creating a new kind of monastery, one without a library of texts, but rich in living wisdom. Occasionally, travelers would arrive asking about the famous library. They had heard of its legendary collection and wanted to study there. Kenji would tell them honestly, the library burned many years ago. Nothing remains but ashes and these standing walls. Some visitors would be angry, having traveled far for nothing. Others would be disappointed, grieving for knowledge they would never access. But a few would understand immediately when Kenji continued. But if you wish to learn, sit down. The teachings are still here. These students would stay and Kenji would share what he knew. Not as dead facts on a page, but as living wisdom in conversation. And often these students would report that they learned more this way, that hearing wisdom spoken by someone who embodied it was different than reading it, that questions could be asked and answered immediately, that teachings could be adapted to specific circumstances and needs. The fire had taken one form of transmission and forced the creation of another. Perhaps better, perhaps worse, but certainly more alive. When Kenji was asked if he regretted the loss of the library, he always paused before answering. "I grieve it," he would say honestly. "I loved those texts, and I grieve their loss. But I do not regret what the burning taught me. I learned that I was attached to preservation itself more than to wisdom. I learned that I had made a temple out of what should have been a tool. I learned that clinging to even good things is still clinging. And I learned that wisdom is resilient in ways we cannot imagine. It survives fires, it survives loss because it lives in us. Not in our libraries, but in our lives." As Kenji grew older, his reputation as a teacher grew far beyond what it had been as a librarian. People spoke of him not as the man who had overseen great texts, but as someone who embodied great wisdom. He was invited to teach at other monasteries, to advise scholars and officials, but he always declined, preferring to remain in the valley. "This is where I learned the teaching that matters most," he would say. "This is where attachment burned away and left freedom in its place. Why would I leave the place of my liberation?" On his 80th birthday, students gathered to honor him. They had collected donations to rebuild the library, to begin assembling texts again. They presented this plan to Kenji, expecting him to be pleased. But he surprised them. "Thank you for this generous intention," he said, "but I have a different request. Take the money you would have spent on buildings and books. Use it instead to support teachers who will share wisdom with anyone who asks. Use it to send students to where wisdom is needed. Use it to translate teachings into languages where they do not yet exist. Use it to make wisdom alive and moving, not stored and static." The students were uncertain but agreed to honor his wish, and so the money was used as Kenji requested. Teachers were supported, students were sent out, translations were made. The wisdom that had nearly been lost in the fire spread further than it ever had before. It moved like water, finding every crack and crevice, nourishing wherever it flowed. When Kenji finally died at the age of 84, he died peacefully. He was found sitting beneath the tree where he taught, a slight smile on his face. His last words, spoken to a student who had asked about the meaning of life, were simple. "Everything that arises passes away, so love it while it is here, and let it go when it leaves. That is wisdom, that is freedom, that is enough." The monks built no monument to Kenji. They did not preserve his robes or create a shrine. Following his teaching, they let him go completely. But his words lived on in the students he had taught, and their students, and their students, like a river branching into countless streams, flowing on and on. The ruins of the library remained on the hillside, but no one ever rebuilt it. Instead, they planted a garden in its place. Cherry trees, bamboo groves, flowering bushes. In spring, the hillside would burst into color. In autumn, the leaves would fall like gentle rain. It became a place where people would sit and meditate, where students would walk and discuss teachings, where anyone seeking silence could find it. The garden was a living teaching, they would say. It showed how life continues after destruction, how beauty can grow from ashes, how letting go of one form allows new forms to emerge. Carved into a stone at the edge of this garden was a single line. Not a quote from sutras, but words attributed to Kenji himself. What truly matters cannot burn. And those who visited the garden would sit with these words, contemplating what in their own lives truly mattered. What could be lost without losing themselves? What was essential and what was merely cherished habit? The fire at the library became a famous teaching story. Other monasteries told it, added their own interpretations. Some saw it as a lesson about non-attachment, others as a teaching on the difference between information and wisdom. Still others as an illustration of resilience and adaptation. All of these interpretations were valid, as all genuine teachings are multidimensional. But perhaps the deepest teaching was simpler than any interpretation. Perhaps it was just this: loss is inevitable. Everything you love will eventually be taken or will change. Your possessions, your loved ones, your health, your life itself. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is secure. This is not pessimism, but reality, what the Buddha called the first noble truth. And yet, within this truth is also liberation. If nothing lasts, then nothing needs to be desperately protected. You can love fully while knowing the end will come. You can appreciate deeply while holding lightly. You can give your whole heart to life while accepting that life is temporary. This is what Kenji learned in the fire. Not immediately, it took years for the understanding to fully ripen. But eventually he saw that the burning library had freed him from the burden of preservation, from the anxiety of protection, from the belief that wisdom needed him to survive. Wisdom is like air. It cannot be contained or controlled. It simply is available to anyone who learns to breathe it. The library had been one structure for accessing that air. When it burned, the air remained and new structures emerged. This is how life works, always and everywhere. Forms arise and pass away, but the formless, consciousness, wisdom, love, truth, continues. You are not your forms, you are not your body, which changes daily. You are not your thoughts, which come and go like clouds. You are not your possessions, which can be lost in a moment. You are the formless awareness in which all forms appear. And that cannot burn. That cannot be lost. That is what you truly are. The fire at the library was teaching this truth to anyone who could hear it. Kenji heard it finally and was transformed, not because he understood it intellectually, but because he lived it, felt it, became it. The teaching was burned into him by the fire of loss, and what emerged from that burning was someone freer, lighter, more alive, someone who had died to what could be lost and discovered what remains. This is the gift of any great loss, if we are willing to receive it. Not that loss is good, it is painful, devastating, world-shattering. But that loss cracks us open to a deeper truth, the truth that we are more than what we lose, that life continues even when specific forms of life end, that grief and freedom can exist together, like rain and sun creating rainbows. Kenji carried this teaching in his being for the rest of his life, and everyone who met him felt it. A lightness, a presence, a peace. The peace of someone who has nothing to lose because he knows he is not what can be lost. This peace is available to you right now as you lie in darkness. Not because you must lose everything as Kenji did, but because you can recognize what he recognized, that your essence cannot be touched by any loss, that awareness itself is indestructible, that you are at your core completely safe, not safe from loss. Loss will come, but safe in loss, safe through loss, safe as loss, because what you truly are transcends all coming and going. Rest in this now. Let it be more than an idea. Let it be a felt sense, a direct knowing. You are awareness, watching the body breathe. You are presence, witnessing thoughts flow. You are the eternal now, in which all time appears. And this awareness, this presence, this now, it cannot burn. So rest, rest in what you are, rest as what you are, and know yourself to be safe, held, eternally home. Continuing to reach Family 2000 words. Act 5, the quiet invitation. Listen to the silence between these words now. It is not empty, but full of peace, full of presence, full of potential. You have traveled far tonight, through stories and teachings that span centuries. The blind calligrapher who found freedom in darkness, the temple cat tied to needless tradition, the burning library that taught letting go. Each story is a mirror, reflecting some truth about your own life, some attachment you hold, some belief you inherited, some fear that keeps you bound. But these stories are also doors, opening onto vast spaces of freedom. You need not solve them or understand them completely. Let them work in you like seeds planted in dark earth. In time, they will sprout in unexpected moments. A flash of recognition when you catch yourself clinging. A gentle laugh when you notice some ritual you perform without knowing why. A breath of relief when you remember that loss is not the end of everything. This is how wisdom moves through us, slowly, organically, mysteriously. Not through intellectual understanding alone, but through lived experience. If these teachings bring you peace, you are welcome to return to them. This space exists for that purpose, to offer refuge when the world grows too loud. Some who listen choose to carry these words with them, returning when rest is needed. Others pass through once and remember the essence without needing the specific form. Both ways are perfectly right. What matters is not how you encounter wisdom, but that you recognize it when you do. That you allow it to shift something in you, however subtly. That you give yourself permission to rest in truth instead of struggling against illusion. You can return here whenever you wish. The door is always open, the path always lit with gentle lanterns. No one will ask why you came or judge how long you stay. This is a refuge, and all are welcome. So rest deeply now, Let the stories continue to work in your sleeping mind. Let wisdom seep into your bones, your blood, your breath. And when you wake, may you find yourself somehow lighter, as if a weight you did not know you carried has been set down in the night. This is the gift of these teachings, not dramatic transformation, but gentle release. Act 6. The fourth story, The Stone Carver. In a small village at the edge of a vast desert, there lived a stone carver named Amira. She had learned the craft from her father, who had learned it from his father, going back 7 generations. The family specialized in carving memorial stones for those who had died, beautiful markers that would stand in the desert sun, speaking names to eternity. Amira took great pride in her work, as her ancestors had. Each stone was unique, carefully chosen for its color and grain. Each name was carved with precision, the letters perfectly formed and deeply cut. She would spend days on a single stone, ensuring it would last for centuries. "We are fighting against time," her father had told her when she was young. "Everything fades, but what we carve in stone might outlast us all." This philosophy had guided Amira's entire life. She saw her work as a sacred duty to preserve memory, to resist forgetting. In a world where everything changed and passed away, her stones would remain. They would speak of those who had lived and loved and mattered. The village people respected her greatly for this work. When someone died, the family would come to Amira with the details they wanted carved. A name, dates, perhaps a phrase or symbol, and Amira would listen carefully, then disappear into her workshop. Days or weeks later, she would emerge with a stone so beautiful it brought tears to their eyes. The letters would seem to glow in certain light. The polish would reflect the sky like still water, and the stone would feel somehow alive, imbued with the presence of the one it commemorated. Amira had carved hundreds of these stones over her 40 years of work. They stood in the cemetery at the edge of the village, a forest of memory. On quiet evenings, she would walk among them, reading the names. Some she remembered carving when she was young, learning the craft. Others were recent, the stones still bright and unworn. Together they told the story of the village, births and deaths, families and generations. And Amira felt a deep satisfaction in having contributed to this continuity. Then one spring, a terrible drought came to the region. The rains that usually fell did not come. The wells that had always provided water began to run dry. Crops failed in the fields, livestock grew thin and weak. The village, like all villages in the desert regions, began to suffer. By summer, the situation was desperate. The village council met to discuss their options. They could try to dig new wells, though the water table had dropped dangerously low. They could migrate to another region, though that meant abandoning their homes. Or they could wait and hope the rains would return, though hope was wearing thin. While the council debated, Amira continued her work. She had 3 memorial stones to complete and refused to let disaster interrupt her duty. Even as her neighbors struggled to find water, she used precious water to mix mortar. Even as families rationed food, she spent days polishing stone to perfection. Amira, her neighbors would say gently, "Perhaps you could help with digging the new well." But she would shake her head. "I must finish these stones. The families are depending on me. The dead deserve to be remembered even if we are suffering." Her neighbors did not argue, but they exchanged worried looks. Something in Amira had become rigid, inflexible. She had always been devoted to her work, but now it seemed to possess her entirely, as if the only thing that mattered was carving stone while the world fell apart around her. By late summer, the situation reached a crisis point. The last well was failing, producing only a trickle of brackish water. The village could not survive much longer without new water sources. A meeting was called, and every able-bodied person was asked to help dig. They would work day and night in shifts, going as deep as necessary to find water. It was their last hope. Everyone agreed to participate, except Amira. "I cannot," she said when asked. "I have work to complete. These stones must be finished properly, or the memory of the dead will be lost." The village elder, a woman named Safia, spoke to her directly. "Amira, there will be more dead to remember if we do not find water. We need your hands for digging, not carving. The stones can wait." But Amira stood firm. "No," she said, "the stones cannot wait. This is what I do, what my family has done for generations. You do your work, I will do mine." Safia looked at her with sadness and concern. "My dear, I think you have forgotten something important. We carve stones to honor life, not to ignore it. If everyone dies of thirst, what good are all your beautiful memorials?" Amira turned away, returning to her workshop without answering. Deep down, she knew Safia was right, but she could not stop. The work had become her identity, her purpose, her way of making meaning in a meaningless world. Without it, who was she? Just another person, anonymous and forgettable. But with it, she was Amira the stone carver, keeper of memory, fighter against forgetting. She could not let that go, even to save her own village. Days passed, and the villagers dug deeper into the earth, searching for water. Amira remained in her workshop, finishing her 3 memorial stones. She worked by candlelight late into the night, perfecting every detail. Finally, she completed the last one, a stone for an old woman who had died in her sleep. Amira had carved the woman's name, her dates, and a symbol of a bird in flight. It was perhaps her finest work, every line expressing grace and transcendence. She stood back and admired it, feeling a sense of completion. Then she heard shouting from outside. She emerged from her workshop to find the entire village gathered in the square. They were celebrating. They had found water, deep but abundant. The village would survive. Amira felt relief wash over her, and she realized how frightened she had actually been. But mixed with the relief was a strange emptiness. While everyone else had been working together, she had been alone in her workshop. While others had been saving the village, she had been carving stone. She had contributed nothing to their survival, had refused to help when asked. And in that moment, she saw herself clearly. Someone who had confused method with meaning, who had elevated craft above connection, who had chosen dead memorials over living people. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She stood on the edge of the celebrating crowd, alone with this knowledge. Later that evening, after the celebrations had quieted, Amira sat in her workshop. The 3 completed memorial stones stood before her in the candlelight. They were beautiful, perfect, exactly as they should be. And yet, looking at them, she felt nothing but hollowness. What had she been protecting with such fierce dedication? Memory? or her own identity as the protector of memory? Had she been serving the dead or serving her own need to matter? These questions circled her mind without easy answers. The next morning, Amira did something unexpected. She gathered the 3 memorial stones and carried them to the families who had commissioned them. But instead of simply delivering them, she sat with each family. She asked about the person who had died, not just their name and dates, but who they had been, what they had loved, what had made them laugh, what wisdom they had shared. And as these families spoke, Amira listened in a way she never had before. She heard stories of generosity and courage, of small kindnesses and great loves. She learned that these people had been more than names and dates. They had been alive, fully human, complex and contradictory. And she realized that her stones, beautiful as they were, captured almost nothing of this. A name carved in stone said almost nothing about a human life. The real memory was in these stories, in the hearts of those who had known them, in the way their kindness had changed others, in the love they had given and received. That was the true memorial, and it needed no stone. After visiting the 3 families, Amira walked to the cemetery. She stood among the hundreds of stones she had carved over her lifetime. All the names, all the dates, all the carefully chosen words and symbols. They stood silent and still, saying nothing, remembering nothing. Only the living remember. Only the living carry forward the essence of those who have died. The stones were just stones, inert and meaningless without living minds to read them. She had spent 40 years fighting against forgetting. But forgetting was not the enemy. Disconnection was. As long as people continued to love each other, to care for each other, to share stories of those who came before, memory lived. The stones were just a symbol, not the thing itself, and she had mistaken the symbol for the reality. In the days that followed, Amira made another decision. She closed her workshop and went to help with the new well. She had no experience with digging or construction, but she worked alongside the others anyway. At first, the villagers were surprised to see her there, but they welcomed her without judgment or recrimination. They showed her how to dig, how to haul stone, how to shore up the well walls. And Amira discovered something unexpected. She enjoyed this work. It was communal, immediate, purposeful in a way carving had never been. She could see the results of her labor instantly. Another foot deeper, another stone placed. And she was doing it alongside others, sharing the burden, sharing the purpose. For the first time in years, she felt truly part of the village. Not separate as the special artisan, but integrated as a fellow human. One afternoon, as they worked, Elder Safia came to check on their progress. She watched Amira working, covered in dust and sweat, and smiled. Later, she pulled Amira aside. "I'm glad to see you here," Safia said simply. Amira nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "I was wrong," Amira said quietly. "I was so focused on remembering the dead that I forgot about the living. I made my work more important than my community." Safia put a hand on her shoulder. "You had to learn what you learned," she said. "There is no shame in that. We all get lost in our purposes sometimes, mistaking the part for the whole. What matters is that you found your way back." Amira felt tears welling up, not tears of sadness, but of release. I spent my whole life trying to make something permanent, she said, trying to defeat time and change through stone. But nothing is permanent, is it? Even these stones will eventually crumble. Even the mountains will eventually wear away. Everything I carved will someday be dust. Saphir was quiet for a moment, then spoke with gentleness. Yes, everything becomes dust eventually. But does that make your work meaningless? Amira considered this. I don't know, she admitted. Perhaps meaning doesn't come from permanence. Perhaps it comes from how we love and serve while we're here. From connection rather than continuation. Saphir smiled broadly. Now you understand what your stones were always supposed to teach you. In the months that followed, Amira continued working on the well during the days. In the evenings, she began accepting memorial commissions again, but approached them differently. She would spend time with each family, listening to their stories. Then she would carve not just names and dates, but try to capture something of the person's spirit, a symbol of their life's passion, a phrase they often said, an image that represented them. And she would tell the families, gently but clearly, this stone is just a marker, a place to focus your remembering. But the real memorial is in you, in how you live out what they taught you, in how you pass their wisdom to your children. The stone will last for a time, but your love will last even longer. Some families understood immediately. Others looked at her strangely, not sure what to make of this philosophical stone carver. But all of them felt that something in her work had deepened, that she was carving not from duty, but from presence, not from fear of forgetting, but from love of remembering. The stones she made after this shift were different, not technically superior. Her skill had always been excellent, but they carried something intangible, a warmth that her earlier work had lacked. People would stand before them and feel moved in a way they couldn't quite explain, as if the stone was inviting them not to mourn but to celebrate, not to cling to the past but to honor it while living fully in the present. Years passed, and Amira grew old herself. Her hands became less steady, her eyesight less sharp. Eventually, she could no longer carve the intricate details she once had, but by then it didn't matter. She had trained young people in the village to carry on the craft, not as a sacred duty, but as a loving service. And she spent her time doing what she loved most now, listening to stories. Families would come to her not just to commission stones, but to share memories. And Amira would listen, truly listen, giving each story the attention it deserved. Sometimes she would cry with them, sometimes she would laugh. Always she would honor what they were sharing. When Amira herself died, at the age of 78, the village gathered to decide on her memorial. They debated what to carve, what words could possibly capture who she had been. Finally, they decided on something simple, a stone carved with her name, her dates, and a single image. Two hands reaching toward each other, not quite touching. It represented what Amira had learned and taught. That connection matters more than permanence. That love exists in the space between people, not in objects. That memory lives in relationship, not in stone. The memorial was placed in the cemetery among all the stones she had carved, and visitors who stood before it would feel something true, that Amira's real legacy was not her beautiful craftsmanship. It was the shift she had made from perfection to presence, from preservation to love. The stones she carved still stand, at least for now. Someday they will crumble as all things do. But the shift she embodied continues in those who learned from her, in how they approach their own work, their own purpose, their own mortality, remembering that nothing lasts forever and that this truth is not tragic. It is just true. And accepting truth, whatever it is the beginning of freedom. The deepening dark. Rest now in the darkness that surrounds you. It is complete, total, asking nothing. The stories have carried you deep into the night, into the quiet places where transformation happens. 4 teachings have been offered, 4 mirrors held up to the patterns of clinging. The calligrapher who clung to sight and found vision in blindness. The temple that clung to form and found freedom in releasing it. The librarian who clung to preservation and found wisdom in loss. The stone carver who clung to permanence and found meaning in the temporary. Each story circles the same truth from a different angle, that our suffering comes not from change itself, but from resisting change. Not from loss, but from clinging to what we cannot keep. Not from impermanence, but from pretending permanence exists. This is what the Buddha taught 25 centuries ago. This is what every awakened being has discovered through their own journey. That peace comes from radical acceptance of how things are. Not passive resignation, but active embrace of reality as it presents itself. You can know this truth intellectually and still suffer. Understanding is not enough. It must be felt, lived, embodied. And embodiment happens slowly, through repeated encounters with these teachings, through stories that bypass the analyzing mind and speak directly to the heart, through stillness that allows deep patterns to surface and be seen, through rest that gives the exhausted self permission to stop defending, stop proving, stop striving. So rest more deeply now. You have nowhere to go, nothing to accomplish, no one to become. Just breathing in darkness, being held by the present moment. Your body knows how to do this. It has been doing it since the day you were born. Breathing, resting, restoring, releasing what is no longer needed. Trust your body's ancient wisdom. Trust the darkness that surrounds you. Trust the silence that holds all sounds. You are safe here, not safe from change. Change will come. Not safe from loss. Loss will come. But safe in the deepest sense, connected to something that cannot be threatened. The awareness that witnesses all experience but is touched by none of it. This awareness is your true home. Not your house, not your family, not your country. This aware presence that looks through your eyes and listens through your ears. That has been here your whole life, unchanged by any experience. This is what you are. Not your name, not your story, not your achievements or failures. Just this. Awareness, presence, the eternal now. And when you rest as this, everything becomes simpler. Problems don't disappear, but they become more workable. Pain doesn't vanish, but it becomes more bearable. Life doesn't suddenly become perfect, but it becomes deeply okay. Okay, not because everything is going well, but because you are no longer at war with what is. This is the peace the old masters speak of. Not the peace of getting everything you want, but the peace of being okay even when you don't. The peace of meeting each moment with open hands instead of clenched fists. the peace of dancing with life instead of fighting against it. You are dancing now, in a way, dancing with sleep as it approaches, not forcing it, not resisting it, just allowing the natural rhythm to carry you deeper. Each breath is a step in this dance. Each moment of rest is a movement toward restoration. And somewhere in this gentle rhythm, consciousness will slip into unconsciousness. You will not notice the exact moment. No one ever does. One moment you will be hearing these words, the next you will be dreaming, and in the morning you may not remember where the line was crossed. This is how all transitions happen. Imperceptibly, naturally, without drama. Waking to sleeping, living to dying, conscious to unconscious to conscious again. The wheel turns and we turn with it. Not through control, but through surrender. Not through effort, but through allowing. This is the final teaching, the one that contains all others. Let go. Of trying to make things different than they are. Of needing to understand everything. Of holding your life together through sheer willpower. Let go and discover what remains when you stop holding. Discover the support that was always here beneath your struggling. Discover that you are held by existence itself, always have been, always will be. This is not faith or belief. It is direct experience available right now. The body is being held by the bed. The breath is being breathed by life. The awareness is being aware without your doing anything. Everything is happening, and you can rest. So rest now, completely. Let the stories dissolve into dreamless sleep. Let the teachings sink into your bones. Let yourself be carried into the vast ocean of unconsciousness, where no you exists, no problems, no past, no future, just darkness, just peace, just this.